I'm ready. I think we'll make sure we have Elko, right? And then we probably
I do tell you that through the writing in those, I read from them directly. I'll not only compete, but I don't think
Okay.
all theoretically. Yeah, well, I got problem. I got it. Thank you. So yeah, I'm totally
clear.
Thank you. That's all I want to be is clear.
All right. We'll go ahead and call the Friday, November 14th, 2014 Board of Wildlife Commissioners meeting to order. Good to see Elko and Las Vegas on the screens. I will ask you guys for comment as we go through the agenda one by one so we can make sure we're on the screen as I think you guys are on mute right now. Before we start, Commissioner Wallace, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Suzanne. Could I get roll call, please?
Chairman Drew.
Here.
Vice Chairman Wallace.
Here.
Commissioner Bliss.
Here.
Commissioner Johnston.
Here.
Commissioner Lane. Here. Commissioner McNinch.
Here.
Commissioner Morai.
Here.
Commissioner Valentine.
Here.
And Commissioner Young.
Commissioner Young did contact me and indicate that he may not be in today. So, roll call of CABs, County Advisory Boards in Reno.
Paul Dixon, representing Clark. Glenn Bunch, Mineral County.
Stan Zuber, Carson City.
No. Which towns in Washington County?
Brandon Hodson, Eureka.
Okay, do we have any CAB members present in Clark on the video? How about Elko?
Chairman.
Elko is here. What did they want?
Yeah, I'm Bert Gurr from Elko.
Thank you. All right, we'll move into agenda item number 2, approval of the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda, and if so, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, this is an action item. I'll take it out to public comment in Reno. Any comment on approval of the agenda in Reno? Elko, I think you may still have your phone off mute. Any comments on the agenda?
No.
No.
Thank you.
And Las Vegas, any comments on agenda?
No comments, Chairman.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the board and entertain a motion on approval of the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda as written. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as written. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item number 3, presentation of the Ted C. France 2014 awards. Secretary Wasley.
Thank you, Chairman Drew. I think I'll stand up at the podium so that I can actually look at the full commission and also present these awards.
Morning.
Hello. Hello. Hello, testing. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So the Ted C. France Award is the award that the department uses to acknowledge the Employee of the Year award. I'd like to just give you guys a brief overview of who Ted France was, why the award carries his name, what he embodied, and what we look for in recipients. Ted was a fisheries biologist that worked for the department from 1951 until 1992 and passed away from cancer at the age of 72 while still employed with the department. The job was his passion. In his early career, In the 1950s, he did stream survey around the state, the first one ever. We still have copies of his reports along with beautiful hand-drawn maps. He later became the Lake Tahoe biologist, subsequently an area biologist for the waters south of Carson City, including the Carson River, Topaz Lake, the Walker River, Lake Tahoe, and the Mason Valley Wildlife Area ponds. He was very serious and published several papers, mostly about trout diet in Lake Tahoe. He lived on state property in Smith Valley and was often seen working weekends collecting fish samples. He never had much use for money, and the rumor goes he was told to cash some of his state checks. They used to send him out in the mail because he had a 6-month supply or 6 months worth of checks in a drawer and was messing up the state budget balance. He was indeed one of a kind. His career with the department was a living testimony of his dedication to the cause of wildlife management. His professional demeanor and work ethic were based on a foundation of loyalty and dedication, and a commitment to excellence that was almost beyond measure. His inspiration helped us all develop the skills that we need to accomplish our work for the great cause of wildlife conservation. So as we look at past recipients of this award, there's a few of them here today. Ken Gray received the award in 1996 for some of his work in the eastern region as an area biologist in Area 6. Laura Richards received the award in 2000 as a habitat staff biologist. And John Schoberg received the award in 2005 as a supervising fisheries biologist in the southern region. The award was not presented between 2006 and 2012. 2012 it was awarded to Sean Espinoza for his outstanding work with sage grouse. For 2013, we had several nominations and kind of bucked tradition in having 2 employees of the year. I'm going to read some notes that were put together by supervisors of these recipients and then say a few things about each of them. First is Chet Van Dellen, and Chet's our GIS staff specialist. He'll be providing us with a presentation or a project update a little bit further on the agenda, so you'll have an opportunity to see some of his work and some of what he does. But for the past year, Chet's been very active and a leader in the Western Governors Association initiative on wildlife corridors and crucial habitat. He's helped lead a team of GIS experts and state wildlife agencies of the 16 western states of the Western Governors Association. This groundbreaking project was completed this past December, and now many of the western states have a publicly available mapping tool or crucial habitat assessment tool known as CHAT that can be used to encourage energy development that minimizes impact to wildlife and protects important habitat and corridors. This effort provides a West-wide GIS internet tool that will provide users with the ability to view the western states at the landscape scale and visualize how those states prioritize habitat based on wildlife resource concerns. As Nevada's technical lead on the WGA CHAT project, Chet devoted hundreds of hours coordinating with other state wildlife agencies in the development. He was featured in and assisted the Western Governors Association with a national live webinar on the benefits of using CHAT for the energy industry. With the launch of Nevada's state-specific CHAT, NV-CHAT, Chet's work was recognized in national news stories, including a news article in the Washington Post. In the past year, Chet's GIS skills have also been instrumental in support of the development of the sage grouse mapping effort, which required hundreds of hours of Chet's time coordinating with game biologists across the state. Chet also assisted the Game Division in refining and updating the Big Game Hunt Unit map. Chet has also assisted Habitat and Conservation Education Divisions in developing high-quality maps for the revised and best-selling Guzzler book. Chet's been indispensable to the Wildlife Diversity Division, NDOW, and our conservation partners in the updating and modernization of the GIS section. He's provided outstanding technical assistance in the development of several hundred species occurrence maps and the 22 key habitat maps for the revised Wildlife Action Plan, and also provided an extensive GIS analysis of priority focal areas for the revised Wildlife Action Plan. Through Chet's efforts and outstanding technical skills, our agency has advanced in our ability to analyze data spatially, which will continue to contribute significantly to the advancement of wildlife management in our state. Chet provides GIS software and support to biologists across the state and across most of the divisions. He's committed to excellence in his work and is a leader within the agency. Chet's professionalism, technical skills, enthusiasm, and significant achievements accomplished this year embody the excellence of the Ted C. France Employee of the Year Award. Chet will be giving a presentation later, as I mentioned. He's here with his wife, Mandy. Do you leave the kids at home?
Yeah.
All right. And I would just like to add some personal comments. Again, those comments were compiled by his supervisor. But I'd like to say, I echo all the sentiments captured in that. But the position that Chet has in running the GIS program, it's challenging for a lot of reasons. It's a statewide responsibility. It's not necessarily the most intuitive in terms of the software and the analytical capabilities. And then one of the biggest challenges is you're working with other people's data on a daily basis. It doesn't provide you with the opportunity to necessarily collect your own data, analyze your own data. You're providing a service to all 7 divisions of the agency, and every day of every week, there's somebody knocking at your door asking for this map or that map. And Chet has the perfect demeanor for the job, and the technical skills and the professionalism, and has really put the Nevada Department of Wildlife on the map west-wide. We have a very small agency compared to many of our counterparts in the western states, and Chet's efforts have really helped put Nevada on the map in terms of broad recognition of our skill set, professionalism, and helped us in gaining the respect that we deserve. So I'd like to award the Department of Wildlife Employee of the Year 2013 Ted C. France Award to Chet Van Dellen.
What's that?
You want?
Tony
Yes,
wants Mandy here.
Those are way better.
No, whatever you want.
Chet, you're welcome to say something if you'd like. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
I'm Chet Van Dellen, the co-employee of the year this year. And I just want to say thank you to Tony and to Laura and to whoever else nominated me for this award. I'm really glad to be here. I love working for this agency. I chose. And I'd also like to thank my staff. Bonnie's here. I have 2 other staffers in my office who I couldn't have done this without them either. We really do a lot of this as a team. And I'd like to, co-dedicate this to their efforts as well. So thank you, everyone.
The other Employee of the Year is Christy Klinger. She's Biologist 3, Southern Region. She's also in the Wildlife Diversity Division. Christy's an excellent biologist with great attention to detail. She's always available to assist other biologists, both within and outside the division. She recognized that other biologists didn't necessarily have a knack for flying too well, some air sickness issues, and she stepped up and has completed aerial surveys in her areas as well as assisting other biologists throughout the state. She's helped train new biologists on survey methodologies, and on her own, beyond her normal duties, she's developed and completed a very comprehensive raptor survey methodology and protocol for use amongst all the state biologists. This protocol has also been requested and provided for use among other western states, California and Arizona in particular. Her attention to detail has been recognized by federal agencies and project proponents. During development of local wind energy projects with Searchlight Wind, Christy was recognized for her inputs during the environmental review and development process. She assisted with survey methodologies and protocol development for bat and bird surveys related to the wind energy projects in southern Nevada, and provided significant detailed inputs that led to a much more thorough and comprehensive review. Ultimately, they were incorporated into the final NEPA and EIS document, minimizing impacts to wildlife affected by the project. Christy has brought the Mine Claim Marker project, the white hollow post that some of you commissioners have heard about in the past, which impact all wildlife, particularly birds, to the forefront. Her documentation and reporting of the impacts have led to national publications of the impacts of mine markers to wildlife. In addition, her field coordination efforts have led to significant removals of mine claim markers throughout the southern region, and she continues to assist in the other regions as well. In addition to completion of the aerial raptor nest survey protocol, Christy has also documented the expansion of the peregrine falcon breeding population throughout the southern and southeastern portions of the state. Nevada now has close to 70 territories. This is a feather in the cap for the state wildlife grant program. Christy consistently assists other divisions, especially the game division, with aerial game surveys and bighorn sheep trapping and transplanting efforts. The game division has consistently commended her for assistance to their programs. Christy's attention to detail is applauded by sister agencies, project proponents, and internal divisions. She's reliable, works well with others, gets the job done efficiently, and embodies the excellence of the Ted C. France Employee of the Year Award. I would just like to add that Christy's ability to work cross-divisionally is recognized by all the divisions that have benefited from her assistance. It's a model that others, not only within the state, but in other agencies, have recognized. It's a great example, and I think that the benefits go way beyond the actual benefits from the survey assistance, but it creates a teamwork atmosphere that's contagious, and I think that the other regions can benefit from that example as well. With that, I'd like to present the Ted C. France Award, the Department of Wildlife Employee of the Year, to Christy Klinger.
Oh, I don't have a prepared statement. I didn't know.
No, you don't have to.
But I'd like to thank Tony and Laura and everybody in my division, everybody in the Department of Wildlife, and I consider it an honor to work for the Department of Wildlife, and I can't imagine doing anything else. And I know there's a lot of people that would probably deserve this before me, but I just try to do the best job I can every single day.
Thank you. I thought you were going to say something. Thank you both. Well deserving.
Thank you, Director Wasley. And just before we move off of number 3, I've had the opportunity to work with both Chet and Christy, both within the department and outside the department. And I can tell you they're both great to work with, and it's something employees like them are folks that the department can be proud of, and I know the commission's proud of their efforts as well. So thank you very much. All right, moving on. Agenda item number 4, member items, announcements, and correspondence. This is an informational item. Any commissioners with announcements or correspondence that they'd like to bring forward at this time? Commissioner Johnston.
Thank you, Chairman Drew. Some individuals in the Arrington area approached me, and they were, at least what they've observed, is a significant reduction in the turkey population in the Walker River corridor and at the management area. Unclear whether the turkeys may have moved to a different area along the river corridor, or if it's an actual reduction in numbers. They asked that I just bring that to the commission and the department's attention, and to see if we couldn't have some evaluation on whether those numbers are reducing, and if so, is there ability to get turkeys from other states. The individuals who approached me suggested that there is that opportunity at a fairly minimal cost, And so I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention based on the correspondence I received.
Thank you. Any other commissioners with correspondence or announcements?
Yeah, I got one.
Mr. Young?
I got a letter from Mr. James Davenport. In fact, I got a couple letters from him. He's a United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, retired. We can get into it more later, but his concern was that he had a medical emergency occur right before he was supposed to go hunting, and the department refused to let him turn in his tag, and he had quite a few bonus points. He has quite a bit of documentation in the 2 letters that he sent me from going to the hospital out there at Nellis Air Force Base, so perhaps maybe we can talk about it, or I can have Tony maybe explain it to me, or Tyler a little bit more. I'm not quite understanding exactly what the process is, but I'd like to address it and at least writing back or give him a call back, because he's written to me twice now.
Okay. I'd ask that you work with the department offline on that, just to get the background.
You bet. Yeah, he's from my area down in Las Vegas.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Young. Any other commissioners with correspondence or items? Right, I've got quite the laundry list. So, first of all, this week was Veterans Day. So to any vets in the audience, thank you very much for your service and all you've done for our country. We'll keep the good news going. I'd like to welcome Commissioner Paul Valentine, who's down here on the end. This is his first meeting, so we're officially back to 9 members. Welcome, Commissioner, and you're welcome to say anything if you'd like.
No, thank you, Chairman Drew. It's a pleasure to be here, an honor to be here, and spending up time with all of you. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Welcome aboard. We appreciate your dedication. Number 3, and this comes out of a couple of the CAB meetings that I attended. You'll notice that we're doing things a little bit different in regards to some of our regulations, where we've split out workshops at one meeting and then we'll come back for approvals at a second meeting. And I know for at least one county advisory board, they kind of missed the informational workshop and getting that on their agenda. So for the CAB members that are here, just please keep in mind that we're trying to space those out a little bit. And if you see something as a workshop, please put it on your agenda. If you have concerns with that, feel free to contact me. And finally, a couple housekeeping items. The Wi-Fi password for this room is over on the whiteboard. That probably doesn't help the folks in Vegas or Elko, but for you folks in Reno, if you want to get on Wi-Fi, if we're not entertaining enough for you, you can do that. And secondly, the mics are pretty much always hot. So on breaks or at lunch, if you want to have sidebar conversations, that's fine. Just step away from the mics so we're not announcing everything in personal conversations to everyone. So that was my laundry list. Any other announcements? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to number 5, County Advisory Boards to manage wildlife number items. This is informational. Any county advisory boards have any items they'd like to bring before us at this time? Mr. Dixon.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark County. To announce to this commission, I was just reappointed in October for another 3-year term. So this will start my 7th year of doing this.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I had a lot of good support down south. There are 2 things that came up in my CAB meeting that I wanted to bring up forward to the commission. Jeremy, one of them I talked to you, but I wanted to put it officially on the record. I gave Suzanne a copy. Is that BLM is doing some, areas of critical environmental concern evaluations, about 3 million acres in southern Nevada. And I would like to have a recommendation that maybe we have the Public Lands Committee get together and have a discussion about that when we're down in Vegas, so I can get people who are concerned or engaged. We have the right facts out there. I don't have all the appropriate facts at this point. This kind of came across my table here in the last 48 hours, and I just want to share that as something you should look at, and what it means to, when you have these areas of critical environmental concern, what it means to hunting and fishing and other things. And, you know, there's a lot of speculation on a lot of things. I just like to get facts out there. That's number 1. And number 2 is, we have the Spring Mountains on the, you know, the Spring Mountain area, the thing we've been talking about this, the trapping committee and other things, and looking at this whole area, the whole Spring Mountain area and Mount Charleston for a while related to trapping and other issues. And one of my board members suggested, and it's something for us to consider, is that in looking down at Tony more, directed more at Director Wasley and his new outreach compatriot back here, Jack Robb, is that we did a conceptual management plan for our wildlife, basically our WMAs, wildlife management areas. What if we looked at putting together some sort of a conceptual management plan of how we want to operate on Mount Charleston and use that as a public vehicle to document what we're actually going to do, rather than continue to have these committee meetings and argue and fight about 24 hours or X or this trail or that trail. Why don't we just sit down and define what we want to do and put together a plan? We had very good success with Overton. And I would say 4 years ago, Overton was a disaster, Tony, and as you remember, and going through that process and doing it very methodically, we ended up in a good place with everybody. And I would like to see the whole Mount Charleston, Spring Mountain area handled in a fashion similar to that, if that's possible. And I'm looking to you, Jeremy, because we do have the trapping committee and stuff, and we've spent thousands of hours, maybe not thousands, but a lot of hours, probably approaching hundreds plus hours of testimony, in both between this meeting, CABS, as well as your trapping committee meetings. And I'm not sure that we've gotten to a place where everybody's in agreement on anything. And it would be nice to be able to document something like that as part of a more formalized process and use that public vetting process that we've done with the conceptual management plan to push that forward. So that's my recommendation to the Department of Wildlife and you to consider as something to move forward with. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other county advisory boards in Reno with items? Right. Seeing none, Las Vegas. Any county advisory boards? Items? Actually, Paul's sitting right here, so.
No comment, Chairman.
Any comments from Elko?
No comment in Elko.
Thank you. With that being said, this was informational, so we'll move to agenda item number 6, approval of minutes for possible action. The commission minutes may be approved from the September 13th, 2014 meeting. Any commissioners with questions or comments on the minutes? I believe they were in your packet.
Chairman Drew, I will be abstaining since I was not at the meeting.
Okay, fair enough. Seeing no other comments at this time, I did, Suzanne, have just a couple of comments. On page 2, our second action item, where Commissioner Wallace was nominated for vice chair, that second sentence reads that he accepted the nomination and asked for public comment. I think we should just put a period there and say that Chairman Drew asked for other nominations, there were none, and asked for public comment, and there was none. Just so that reads a little bit cleaner. And then on number 6, page 4, we had a call for commission discussion, and there was none. And we had a call for public comment, and there was none prior to the August minutes. Those were my only 2 additions.
I'll make a move, Mr. Chairman, to approve the minutes.
Okay, I'm going to hold you off just a second. It is an action item, so is there any public comment in Reno on minutes? Seeing none. Las Vegas, any comment on minutes?
No comment, Chairman.
Thank you. Elko?
No comments.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board.
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes as with the minor changes that you mentioned.
Okay. Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes with the 2 additions that I presented. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. We will move to agenda item number 7, Nevada
Excuse me,
Department.
Mr. Chairman. Just for clarification for the record, you did have an abstention.
Correct. For the record, we did have 1 abstention from Commissioner Valentine on that vote. 7. Moving to agenda item number 7, Nevada Department of Wildlife Projects update. Secretary Wasley, this is informational. Tony, is this one we want to flip sides of the table on?
Yeah, before we do that, let me just give some quick background, not only for the commission, but for the audience. So going back to our June meeting this year, we've kind of initiated a new process that will provide the commission as well as those in attendance the opportunity to gain some insights into some of the projects and programs that are occurring around the state. The idea is that we can take advantage of geography of either the project or personnel. Today, what we're going to hear about is the Crucial Habitat Assessment Tool, the CHAT project, for which we just acknowledged Chet's endeavors. If it would have been the Crucial Habitat Evaluation Tool, it would be Chet. Given Chet, it would have been really easy, but so I think Chet has a computer-based presentation for us, so I guess I'd ask that the commission come over here in the front row so you can see the screen. And certainly if there are ever programs or projects that the commission desires to have an update on, communicate that desire and we'll try to get it on an agenda.
All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order, and Chet, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I apologize for the delay. Again, I'm Chet Van Dalen, the GIS coordinator for the department. Thank you for having me, Chairman and Commissioners. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of what the Crucial Habitat Assessment Tool, or CHAT, is, both across the West and for Nevada. So this project started back in 2008 when the Western governors came together and realized that they needed a comprehensive way to look at wildlife habitat across the West. Some states had some powerful GIS and internet mapping tools, but not all states did, and getting that data into the hands of the decision makers was a real priority for them. So they formed a wildlife council under the Western Governors Association, which then drafted a white paper to guide how we could take the concept of mapping wildlife habitat across the West and put it into practice at the state level. That council formed a technical team. I'm the Nevada member of that team in 2009, and this was pretty much the first project I jumped into when I came on board with NDOW. Those technical teams worked for the past 4 years to develop the Crucial Habitat Assessment Tool framework and to implement the vision of the white paper and the Western Governors, which finally went live in December of 2012 or 2013 at a meeting in Las Vegas. It went live on the internet. Before I show you what this is, it's important to know what the CHAT means and what it doesn't mean. The CHAT is a way to get wildlife data in an easily digestible and clear message to the public, to land use managers, to conservationists, to anyone who's interested in what the state sees as wildlife priorities in a clear way. This is not a regulatory tool. There's nothing in this information that tells you what you can and can't do on the landscape. It is merely a way to provide a consistent framework to show that these areas are higher priority for wildlife versus lower priority. That's not priority, but in a relative framework, we have a higher priority to a lower priority. We want to provide all stakeholders with a credible, consistent information that we provide to the land use managers, to the department, to the agency partners. Everybody gets the same message, and it's all based on the same data. This is not a way to replace consultation with an area biologist or the department or the commission. This is not a way to interpret mitigation or avoidance measures, and this is not a way to evaluate a project on the ground. This is a landscape scale project. The mapping units you'll see here are random hexagons at 1 square mile. You cannot go in beyond that. So it's for high-level planning. Before you commit to a piece of ground, you're going to have an understanding of what your potential risk for impacting wildlife concerns in any given area of the state might be. Okay, so what is the CHAT? The CHAT is a way to take all these buckets of information and interpret them in a clear manner. We use a ranking system from 1 to 6. 1 is our highest priority areas. 6 is our lowest priority areas. Again, not no priority, but lowest priority. And those buckets of data describe what our Wildlife Council interpreted as the most important pieces of information to include in the project. That would include your information on SGCN species, species of greatest conservation need, your high priority species. These are your threatened and endangered species. These are your State Wildlife Action Plan species of greatest conservation priority. These can be split between terrestrial and aquatic, but we also are interested in our species, are species of economic and recreational importance, which is a fancy way of saying our game and sport fish species. These are the species that we manage for economic value or recreation value that may not fall into the category of high conservation priority under the Endangered Species Act or the Wildlife Action Plan. There is some overlap between those two categories, however. We also have important wetland and riparian habitat. Landscape integrity is a way to get at the naturalness or the intact state of the landscape. Important restoration habitats as identified by a Wildlife Action Plan or similar planning documents, and then other valued lands, national parks, wilderness areas, wildlife management areas. All of these are sort of buckets of data that the states were instructed to fill with their best available information and roll it into the concept of crucial habitat at a high level. So I'll give you a couple of examples. For our species of greatest conservation need, we took our known occurrence data. This is data that the department collects, our agency partners collect, consultants might collect in their survey work. This is scientific collections, commercial collections, historical museum records, lek sites, raptor nests, anything we have that tells us where the known occurrences of species are on the landscape goes into this bucket. We also use our habitat for sage grouse. We also use our modeled, to fill in the gaps between the known occurrences, we need to get at what our predicted occurrences are. And the United States Geological Survey has a GAP program, which stands for Gap Analysis Program. And it gives you a species predicted distribution model for all the species in our Wildlife Action Plan. So we use those models to get at where we don't know what we don't know. Take all of those together and you have to rank the data in some way. You use, in Nevada, we use the NatureServe conservation ranks, the S ranks for the state. I don't know if you've seen the G1, G2, or the S1, S2 species that will tell you what's imperiled versus what's common. But we use those to rank the species. S1 species, threatened and endangered species, are ranked higher than S5 species or common species. We also leverage the Climate Change Vulnerability Index that we did for our Wildlife Action Plan if a species is highly vulnerable to climate change versus stable or expected increase under climate change. That goes into how we prioritize our species. So an example of this is real data in Nevada. This is Ruby Valley right here in the Ruby Mountains. These are our occurrence data. Throw in your lek sites, throw in your raptor nest, and you can start scoring these mapping units. As I mentioned, these are 1 square mile hexagon mapping units that are just randomly generated across the state. And you can start ranking the landscape where these species occur. You can add the species distribution models to fill in the gaps, and you get a picture of what the landscape as a whole looks like in terms of the species of greatest conservation need. A similar process was employed for the species of economic and recreational importance, our game species, whether it's big game, upland game, fur bearers and predators, or waterfowl. We took our species distribution maps for all of those species, and we ranked them as this priority species or is this priority habitat or general habitat. Priority habitat might be your crucial wintering areas, your fawning areas, your migration corridors. Start overlaying these one on top of each other, and you get an idea of where these species occur most, or the richness of these species occur in the highest numbers. And that is telling us where our most important recreation opportunities and where our most important economic driving species are occurring across the state. Overlay all those together, and again, you get a map that shows in the darker blue least priority or least known occurrence of these species to the yellow most known occurrence of these species. And that starts ranking the state in terms of where our highest priority for economic and recreation species occur. That sort of aggregation process is employed across all those buckets of data: species of greatest conservation need, economic and recreation, freshwater integrity to capture our fish concerns, landscape integrity or intactness, naturalness, and then large areas of intact landscape. All of that best available data from the state and from our partner agencies and other sources gets aggregated into these thematic layers, which then get rolled up into one picture of what crucial habitat is in Nevada. This is the website we built to launch this tool. This is the current map that was launched in December of 2013 that shows the crucial habitat incorporating all of those themes, all of those buckets of data across the state. This map goes into the western picture with all the other states' maps and provides a seamless tapestry of information for 16 western states. You don't see Alaska here, but they are included in the analysis. So what do we end up with? We end up with regional consistency that still leverages the ability of the state to represent their own priorities as they see fit, but it's built on a framework that everyone participated in and everyone agreed on. It's collaborative. It's also informative and it's relevant. So this gives the information to people before they commit to a piece of ground that they want to develop or conserve or make land use decisions with. If you've already committed to it, it's still going to tell you what your relative risk or relative impacts to the wildlife concerns may be. And it's proactive. It gets this information into their hands earlier than the conversation has been happening. And that was one of the key goals of the governors. I think that's it. That is it. I can take questions if you want, or relinquish my phone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chet. And as everyone kind of gets back in their seats here, I'll call for questions in just a minute, but maybe one of them you can answer. This is available online if other folks want to take some time and explore it.
Yes. Yeah, so this is the website. This is live online right now. You can get at this through ndow.org. It'll take you to this mapping page, which allows you to select the data, whether it's one spot at a time. You can also select multiple areas, and it'll give you a sort of breakdown of what those scores mean. The data layer is also available for download. If you have a GIS consultant or a GIS capable workstation where you are, you can download this full data set, and it's freely available and for use on your own machine or for wherever you need to access the information.
Other commission questions? Commissioner Lane.
I'm curious as to what efforts have been made to let local governments know about this information, particularly with respect to development. And since this is a GIS system, which I'm really impressed with the work that has been done on this, I guess my question would be, how can you tie this to some of the issues that we're beginning to see in terms of weather-related issues like upcoming drought problems and changing weather conditions in terms of heat, where it appears that you may have higher temperatures in the future. Are you going to be able to marry those kinds of, since it is GIS, can you marry those to other databases outside of what you've done here?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So because the data is available for download, you can certainly download the layer and compare it to what your predicted changes might be and give you sort of what's the state of affairs today versus what you might see in 25, 50, 100 years if you have that information available. We've also incorporated the Climate Change Vulnerability Index. That's a nature-certain model that evaluates each species individually and ranks it from increased likely due to climate change all the way to highly vulnerable due to climate change. And that shows us where those species occur now, and they give them a higher priority for concern if they're more vulnerable. And this tool will be updated at least every year, and we're talking about every 6 months. So as species occurrence and species distribution ranges shift through time, it will be incorporated into future iterations of the tool and the data set. As for the distribution to local governments, this was rolled out through the Western Governors Association. They have taken on a lot of the bulk of outreach and communication. There's a West-wide stakeholder group, and they've been promoting that within their own stakeholder sort of representative bodies. But in terms of local outreach, we've rolled this out to our federal partners. The Nevada Mining Association had a presentation, but more local than that, we haven't had a chance to present this yet. But it is available on the website and has been. So any questions, my email is tied to it. I can answer any questions that may come up to you.
Other questions?
Can I ask a question in this?
I'm reluctant to open it up to public comment on time, but Mr. Seth and I will allow you to ask.
I'll catch you at the break. That's
okay.
Sure.
Any other questions by the commission? All right, seeing none, thank you, Chad.
Okay, thank you. Again,
Appreciate
I'm available via email and phone. You know where I work. So.
Thank you.
Okay, that was an informational item. Again, I appreciate the presentation. Tony, was that the only one we had today? Or?
Yes, that's the only one we had today, but again, I'd just like to reiterate to the commission that if there's any program or project that you guys desire to learn more about, please bring it to our attention, and we can do something similar and get it for you so you can be made aware of our efforts.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, we'll open up agenda item number 8, special incentive elk tag arbitration NAC issue, Eastern Region biologist Ken Gray for possible action. At the recent September commission meeting, the commission passed a motion to ask the department to draft a new version of NAC 502.42283 that provides pursuant authority set forth in NRS 502.142 that the commission shall appoint or serve as the arbitration panel and have the discretion to set the procedure in which the arbitration proceeds under commission's authority. The draft NAC will be presented with possible approval by the commission. Mr. Gray.
Well, good morning, Commission, and welcome Commissioner Valentine to the Commission. Much chat. I don't know how much there really is to say about this. You know, this is the third commission meeting that we've gone through this. Basically, what we tried to do was take the motion and craft the NAC to the motion. Basically taking it from a local panel concept to a commission-driven panel concept. I guess probably the most appropriate way would be to, if you guys have any specific questions on it, or your general thoughts on the NAC revision.
Any questions of Mr. Gray from the commission? All right, seeing none, thank you, Ken. What I'll do is, at this time, I'll open it up to County Advisory Board comments, any County Advisory Board inputs here in Reno. Seeing none, we did receive some action reports, so everyone should have their input through the action reports. Any public comment here in Reno? Any public comment in Las Vegas?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Public comment in Elko?
No comment in Elko.
Okay. We'll bring it back to the board for discussion, or I would entertain a motion. Commissioner Johnston.
I'll make a motion. I do have one comment, and this probably goes for a next agenda item or on a future agenda, is I anticipate that this is probably going to get approved. And if it does, then we need to set the procedure for which this is going to occur before the commission. And that would then go back to the reference to the Nevada Administrative Code, Section 502. So for a future commission agenda, we should have the procedures in which we're going to follow if we end up sitting as on the arbitration panel, or if the panel is appointed, so that that guideline is in place for when this occurs. That being said, I would move to approve NAC 502.42283 as drafted.
I'll second that.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to approve as presented. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. And I will close agenda item number 8. And we'll open up agenda item number 9, Commission General Regulation Workshop. Public comment will be allowed. Number 8, Commission General Regulation 453, first come, first served bonus point program amendment, LCB file number R113-14, Management Analysis 3, Maureen Hollinger. And this is information workshop. Public comment will be allowed. The Commission will consider regulation relating to wildlife regarding making an exception in the bonus point program and not have the loss of bonus points occur in the bonus point category if the applicant is successful in the first come, first served draw for a tag, and providing other matters there to Maureen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Maureen Hollinger from Nevada Department of Wildlife. I am here to present for workshop CGR 453, the first come, first served bonus point program amendment, file R113-14. Tags, as it states in the agenda description, tags in the first come, first served are unissued tags which are remaining from the main draw and our remaining tag draw after that. They are They are part of the bonus point program, and the way our regulation reads right now is that once you draw a tag in the categories as identified in regulation, you lose your bonus points. So this particular regulation change, as in the background paper I provided for support material, we've had comments from the public over the past few years by sportsmen that were surprised to find that they lost their bonus points when they came back for one of those remaining tags in a weapon type that they don't normally or rarely apply for in the regular main draw or remaining tag draw. So to address that issue, the Tag Allocation and Application Hunt Committee directed the department to come forward with this regulation change in the administrative code so that persons who obtain one of these first come, first serve issued tags won't lose their bonus points in those categories. It's the categories were developed back in 2000 as a result of pressure from the public, so it's almost like an unintended consequence where we rolled all the weapon types up into the categories, and now we're seeing there's interest that, you know, they have desired areas in weapon types, but they don't want to lose their points in, say, an archery hunt that tends to be where our first come, first serve tags are remaining. So with that said, in the white paper that I provided some scenarios, the more common scenarios that you would see with hunters when they're applying. Scenario one being a person that has bonus points on record. They apply in the main draw for an antlered deer category, the buck hunt. If they're successful, they would lose their points as per regulation. If they were unsuccessful, they'd earn their bonus point. But there's remaining tags. Say they come back in the second draw for remaining tags. If they obtain it at that point, they would lose their points. Unsuccessful, they don't earn any more points, but they don't lose them either. First come, first serve. The remaining tags at that level, currently they would lose their points if they obtain one of those tags. So with this change, the only thing that it would do in that scenario is that they just don't lose their points if they obtain one of those first come, first serve tags. The second scenario dealt with the antlerless deer. We have remaining tags with antlerless deer. You could have a person that puts in for the antler deer category in the main draw, sees that there's antlerless deer tags remaining in the second draw. If they're successful in the main draw for buck, they lose their points, but if they're unsuccessful, they earn their point for that buck tag. They can come back in the second draw and apply for a doe tag, the antlerless category. If they draw that tag, if they had points on record in that category, they would lose their doe points, still maintaining their buck. But if they're unsuccessful for that doe hunt in drawing that tag, they could earn a point in that category also. In this scenario, with the change, if they drew that doe tag, they won't lose their points in either category, but they have that opportunity to hunt in a situation that maybe is less desirable for them, a doe hunt versus what they're most desirable is a buck hunt. So the last scenario is the junior hunt. We generally have lots of junior tags left over. Current process, if they obtain a tag in the main draw, they lose their points. If they come back and obtain a tag in the second remaining tag, they would lose their points. First come, first serve, those junior hunters would not lose their points. So that, but they can only earn 1 point during a year if they're unsuccessful all the way across. So in the junior hunt, it's really a no-lose situation for those junior hunters if you're up for recruitment. So with those are just the three high visibility scenarios. I mean, you can have, with this change, a person that didn't apply in any of the draws and comes back and picks up a first come, first serve tag, and they will not lose their points if they have them on record. And so you could be in that situation also. They missed the main draw or their second draw for whatever reason and pick up a tag, an archery tag, or if it's a junior hunter, they're finally eligible. They won't have points on record. They can pick up a tag. So pretty much that's the layout of what the basically what that regulatory change could do. I did provide an attachment of where we've had remaining tags in the first come, first serve over the last 5 years. I did have someone say, well, what happened in 2011? Well, we didn't even have any remaining tags at that level. We issued them all in the second draw. So with that said, I'll open up to questions. If you want me to, I can go through each section for this workshop. It's pretty straightforward. I can move on to that section.
Let's see if at this point there's any questions or desire to step through this section by section. Any commission questions?
Chairman Drew, I just got one. How many of the first come, first served tags are remaining after the allotted time? Do we know? Are there ever any left over?
There are. I do have the 2014, we just closed that opportunity this year, and we had, for the first come, first served draw, 612 tags across the junior hunt and the archery buck hunt. And we issued 495 of those when we finally closed it after all the seasons opened and things. So we had 117 left over across those two different hunts, primarily junior. Only 71 of them were the archery hunt for that 101 through 109 early, where we had generally quite a few tags left. So I don't know if we've ever really issued all of the junior hunt tags. I'd have to go back and investigate that, but we tend to have a few left over, in the archery at least, the buck archery hunt. So.
Mr. Blizzard, do you have a question or comment?
Question, Dr. Morgan. Kind of a comment. You answered one of my questions, and that was if someone didn't apply for any of the other two draws, if they could apply for first come, first serve. I'm a little bit concerned that if this goes through, that we may see a big reduction in the second draw. When people start figuring this out, they might not apply for the second draw, which would then put more tags into the first come, first serve situation, and then apply, and we may not. We might end up with a bunch of tags, you know, in the first come, first serve.
That is a possibility. Right now in our second draw arena, the last 2 years, I don't think we've had cow tags left over. I think we've issued them all, but there is that potential. Historically, we did have cow elk tags remaining in the archery weapon types. So, you know, it is a concern. It is a possibility, but how people apply can change from year to year depending on what's available. So yeah, there is that potential, certainly.
Other questions or comments at this point? Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Johnson.
Just following on Commissioner Bliss's comment, I guess we could make this contingent on that you put in for the first and second draw to come back during the first come, first serve and not lose your bonus points. I guess my question is, would that be possible? And if I wasn't clear, I can rephrase that.
No, you were quite clear. I would probably want to think about that a little off the versus off the fly here. And I think I'll fall back on a comment that we've probably heard at other meetings from our contractors. Anything could be programmed for a price, but we'd have to look at it. And you know, and I think you'd want to know what that impact would be. I mean, right now we have 417 or so that have come back and picked up those first come, first served tags. The purpose is to get these people in the field, to get the harvest for the game division, and an opportunity to hunt, and to address the public's concern of losing those points. I mean, I don't know why that should even be an impact if we're getting them in the field. You know, why it should be, you know, that's the main goal, is to get them out there and to get the management taken care of. So to add strings to it, you know, it adds programming, it adds administration to the programming, but you know, we can certainly do whatever your choice and direction tells us to do.
So it doesn't look like there's other comments or questions. I guess the concern I had, and one of the cabs that I attended brought it up, is that, you know, obviously there is people who want to get these tags, in the fact that we've sold, I think, all the first come, first serve with the exception of youth hunts. And their point was, if there's that demand, I guess they couldn't see why we would not take a bonus point because it is something that they want. And I'm not sure, I think this was discussed by the Tag Allocation Committee, so if someone were on that committee and wants to give me some background on those types of discussions, maybe it would be helpful. But that was one concern that came up that, I guess I can see the concern. Mr. Wallace?
Thank you, Chairman Drew. I think my concern is that if, it says it right here in the background that there's a misconception that they're less desirable. And to me, a tag is a tag. If you go through and you already pulled 2 bonus points in your scenario with the buck and then the doe, and then you go ahead and the first come, first serve, and you take one of those tags, yet you still gained a bonus point in each category. I don't think I'm comfortable with that. If maybe you come in that first come, first serve, and you draw that, maybe you don't draw any bonus points for that year. Of course, then we're back to the programming and all that again, but that's kind of where I'm at on that. I don't, if we're going ahead and we're filling all these anyway, I don't see what we're gaining.
Commissioner Johnston?
I was on the TAC committee, I guess I still am, at the time when this was discussed, and I think the idea, as alluded to previously, was that if there are first come, first served tags left over, how do we get them into the hands of people? And that people who may not otherwise put in for an archery tag would come in on a first come, first served basis to get the tag. I think or at the time, Commissioner Macbeth's comment was, if this happens, I'm running out and buying a bow. And I don't know if there's additional people who would say, wait, if I can go get a first come, first served archery tag and not lose my bonus points on any illegal weapon, I'm going to have an additional opportunity to get in the field. That was the thought process. And now Deputy Director Rob can correct me if I'm wrong, as he was chairing the committee at the time.
I'm sorry, I was reading the email. I'm trying to do business.
I don't know if you can put that in minutes.
Okay, I'll strike that, I apologize. I had to throw it in.
I'm going to owe you for that one.
And what was your question?
Yeah. It was a comment that on the committee, the discussion was, if there are first come, first served tags left over, the reason that you would not take away the bonus points was those who might not otherwise come in for a first come, first served archery tag is they don't want to lose their tags, their points for like an illegal weapon. So we get more opportunity to get people in the field, get the tags issued.
That's exactly it. We had tags that were not used at all during the season. Nobody would come in and get them because it was a less desirable hunt. If it's a desirable hunt, it would have been picked up in the first round. And so we were encouraging people to take these, but they didn't want to give up their bonus points. And we want to increase opportunity, not take it away. So in trying to increase the opportunity to hunters and get people in the field, that was the only way we saw we could use those tags.
Okay. Other commission comments or
I
questions?
apologize for reading my emails, trying to keep up with business while I'm in the middle of your meeting.
Good comeback, Jack.
I have a feeling you're going to get a few zingers thrown at you in this process. If there's no other commission question or comment, what I'll do is open it up to county advisory boards. Any county advisory boards want to share their discussion with us here in Reno? Carson City.
Yeah, Stan Zuber with the Carson City CAB. Our discussion mainly focused on the fairness of this. If a hunter puts in for a hunt and receives the tag, regardless of whether they're successful, they lose their bonus points. And we just didn't seem that if somebody would then come in, another first come, first serve, that therefore they should also, they have the same tag. Again, we didn't view any tag as being a less desirable tag, and therefore that person should also lose their bonus points. And, you know, if they don't want to forfeit their bonus points, then they shouldn't be putting in for the first come, first serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Other county advisory board comment here in Reno?
For the record, Walt Mandeville, Lyon County Board of Wildlife. We discussed this quite a bit at our last meeting, and the idea of getting these tags out is as a management issue, because the biologists developed the harvest to try to reduce the herds, and I know the elk herds have grown and have a real difficult time of cutting those herds back to what the management objectives are. That we felt that those tags should be available on a first come first service and not lose the bonus points. That was what the board voted on. That was our opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Walt. Other county advisory boards? All right, public comment in Reno? 9A. Seeing none, public comment in Las Vegas?
No comment, Chairman, in Las Vegas.
Okay, thank you. Public comment in Elko?
Not public comment, but it has to be because we didn't have a quorum. For the record, I'm Bert Gerd, the newest county game board advisory guy, whatever you call us. We didn't have a quorum, but it was kicked around a lot, and with the 3 or 4 people who were there. So officially, there's no report, but unofficially, it felt like there was much ado about nothing. If you want that tag, you put in for that tag, and if you get a tag, you get a tag. You've got a tag, you've got an opportunity to hunt. You shouldn't get a bonus point for that year for those. Maybe not lose your past bonus points, but you're hunting that year, you shouldn't get a point in either the buck or the doe hunt if you go for a first come, first served tag. That's unofficially what was said. Thank you.
Thank you, Elko. No other comments? All right, I think we may have missed one for 9A here in Reno, so come on up.
Rex Flowers. I think we should have a first come, first served, not lose bonus points. But I sat on the TAC committee when this was heard. And this was really aimed at any legal weapon and muzzle loader hunt people. I know I don't want to sound discriminatory, but I do have a problem with carrying this all the way through the youth hunt, because the youth hunt 1107, they apply for the same tag in all hunts. There's never any variation. The focus of this originally was to introduce people into basically archery hunting who otherwise would be any legal weapon or a muzzle loader type hunter, and not take away their past. I don't know if you can follow that concept, but I'm going to tell you right now, I have grandchildren that are youth hunters. If they apply in the first go-round and they don't draw a tag, there is no reason for them to put in the second draw. They may as well wait to the third draw one of these tags and go up to Elko that year and not lose any bonus points. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Any other public comment, Reno? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Maureen, I do have one question on that in regards to the youth. If I remember correctly, I think we have the youth set up to where you can't draw more than 4 tags, something along those lines. How would this impact our youth regulations? I understand that they won't lose a bonus point if they bought a first come, first served tag, but how does it work in regards to the maximum number of tags that they can have as a youth?
It would apply toward that.
And I have that right, you can only have up to 4, I think.
I believe it's 5, but I'd have to look at the regulation.
But this wouldn't impact that one way or another. A tag's a tag.
A tag is a tag.
That regulation.
Yes.
Other questions or comments based on what we've heard to this point? Okay, this is a workshop, so unless I think there's a desire to probably move this forward, we can't take a formal action on it today. But unless there's some specific recommendations, my inclination is to move it forward to the next meeting as presented by the department. So unless someone wants to see a change to go forward out of this workshop, speak now, or that's how we'll move forward. Seeing no comments, we'll move this out of workshop to the next agenda item for approval as presented to us here today. So county advisory boards and public, you will have another opportunity to comment on this, even if it is redundant. I will close the workshop on 9A, open the workshop on item 9B, Commission General Regulation 416, Shed Antlers, LCB file number R155-12, Chief Game Warden Tyler Turnipseed. This is informational workshop. Public comment will be allowed. The Commission will consider a regulation relating to shed antlers, allowing a person to take shed antlers from the field during an open season and providing other matters properly related thereto. The regulation prohibits collecting shed antlers from the field from January 1st to April 14th, therefore allowing collection of sheds from the field during April 15th to December 31st. The Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners conducted workshops on January 31st and March 21st, 2014, and action was taken to approve the regulation on March 22nd at the meeting. The regulation was heard before the Legislative Commission on June 23rd, 2014, and was deferred to the agency to add language to add an exemption for private landowners. So if you'll recall, this issue has been before us in the past. The Commission did pass the regulation, and it was basically deferred back from the Legislative Commission. So kind of a new process that we're dealing with here to have it come back this way. But I asked that we brought it back before the board because there was wording change. So I will turn it over to Chief Game Warden Turnipseed to go from there.
Thank you, Chairman Drew. As you just said, this regulation was heard, and I'm sure you guys all remember all the testimony, both for and against it, a year ago or previously. So the Legislative Commission sent it back to us. They asked that an exemption be put in for private landowners to pick up antlers on their own private land. The language that you see there before you would read, except otherwise provided in this section, a person shall not collect shed antlers at any time during a year unless the shed antlers are collected by the person from the field from April 15th to December 31st, inclusive of that year. The landowner, immediate family member of the landowner, or employee of the landowner may collect shed antlers on that landowner's private property without season limitations. That's the language that we wrote to include that private land exemption the Legislative Commission asked for. I'm sure you guys saw in the public comment and from some of the CAB member groups that there was a lot of discussion on once an antler falls off, it's no longer wildlife, therefore, is that considered the property of the landowner? I think that's probably a pretty valid point that, we should consider in this language is that, the wildlife itself, i.e. the deer, elk, etc., is property of the people in Nevada. But once an antler is cast off, probably not considered wildlife anymore. So when it drops on the ground, it may be no different than anything else laying on that landowner's properties. I guess take that into consideration.
So let's see, Commission comment, suggestions, Commissioner Bliss?
Yeah, Mr. Turnipseed, I question if we actually have the authority to tell a landowner who or who we can't have on his property to be able to pick up a shed horn. So I kind of question the way this is worded, and myself, I think I'd feel a lot more comfortable if it was just worded a little simpler, as that they at the discretion, that they can be picked up at the discretion of the private landowner, and he would still have the authority to come on his property or off his property, and who can take it and who can't, instead of tying it to just the immediate family and stuff.
Exactly, and I guess that's my point in that thought that came from some of the counties is that once the antler's cast off, we may not have the authority to say what the private landowner does with that and what time of year. Quite honestly, when I wrote this new language, that point hadn't sunk in, but in reading some of the comment, I tend to agree with that once the antler's cast off, it's no longer wildlife anymore, and I think that land can do with it as he sees fit. Letting people antler hunt if he wants, or not letting people antler hunt if they want. So if we could change that language to read something a person, or at the end of December 31st, inclusive of that year, and an exception that says, an exception is on private land, or we could just include it in that sentence, person shall not collect shed antlers from public land, or with the exception of private land, a person shall not collect shed antlers, something along those lines of better language that would give that landowner the authority to stop his own private property rights.
Commissioner Johnson?
I agree. With Commissioner Bliss, if there's going to be an exception for private land, it just needs to be a more blanket exception for private land, and something to the state to the effect that shed antlers may be collected on private property at any time during the year, rather than trying to get into the definition of landowner, employee, and things of that. One question I do have is, what is the penalty if someone violates this regulation? If it goes into effect, says you can't pick up shed antlers basically from January to April 14th on public land, what's the penalty?
It's a misdemeanor, so it would be a written citation. Since it's never made it that far, we haven't sat down yet and figured out what'll be the recommended bail amounts. That would be a little bit up to the court's jurisdiction in each county, but we would make a recommendation as to say, we could make that a $100 recommended bail or $500 recommended bail, or whatever. We've got some leeway in that under state law of what a misdemeanor, what we can and can't do on a misdemeanor. But as far as the demerits, it would be one that we haven't classified with a specific demerit amount yet, so it would fall under the 3 demerit. Basically all the regulations that aren't specified as being 6 or 9 or 12, this one will fall under the 3. Does that answer your question?
It does, and then a follow-up question, I guess, would be if someone went to collect shed antlers on private property without the permission of the landowner, that'd be a trespass violation.
Exactly, yep.
Other questions or comments? So I'll bring this back to the commission, but when I do, I would like to get some specific language. I know some things have been kicked around, but if we're going to advance it out in the workshop, I would like to get some specific language so we know what to advance out. So be thinking of that, folks to my left, as we go to public comment. So, CAD comment here in Reno, Mr. Dixon.
Record. Paul Dixon, Clark County. There's two things here, and I wanted to bring one back up because I heard Chief Game Warden Turnipseed say, and you guys agree that, once an antler falls off, it's no longer wildlife and stuff, but I thought the whole purpose of this, and I'll look back to Deputy Director sitting behind me, of this regulation was the harassment of wildlife during certain times, critical times of the year when they're wintering. And whether or not it's wildlife or not, the reason for this regulation was to keep droves of people out of the field harassing wildlife. And so I think it's almost a red herring to worry whether or not the antlers are not. And so I personally have, and then I'll get into my CAD comment, I personally have a problem with allowing a landowner to allow somebody to come in and collect antlers on a commercial scale on his property because he's a landowner, because the whole purpose of this really was to protect the wildlife. It had really nothing to do with the collection of the antlers. It had to do with harassment of wildlife is what I thought. And I'd like you guys to reconsider that as you're debating this up front. The Clark County CAB did vote in a split vote to support this regulation as written. And the dissenting vote that really came back for this came back on the point of, right now we have, if it's, with the exception of the private landowner, they would like to have not left at the discretion of the Department of Wildlife Game Wardens to say, if somebody picks up one antler when they're out with their kids during the year, that it's at the game warden's discretion that one antler, or if he picks up 2 or a set or a couple, that's not a violation. And everybody says the game wardens are going to be reasonable. They would really like to have specific language put in here that said, the dissenting vote that said, you should say if you're in the possession of X or less antlers, it's not a violation. If you're in possession of X or Y and you're not on private land, it is a violation. And that's just another thought from the CAB. Thank you.
Okay. Other county advisory boards in Reno.
Rich Tamlin of Washoe County. Our board was against having any exemptions for landowners. The main reason there is whose family, who's an employee, felt that somebody wanted to go hunt shed antlers, landowner could hire him for a day and go. But it was completely just, if it's not gonna pick up antlers, we shouldn't pick up antlers.
Okay, other county advisory boards in Reno? Seeing none, public comment in Reno? Come on up.
Rex Flowers speaking on behalf of myself. If a cast off antler is no longer wildlife, you should not be trying to regulate it. Simply put, if this is about harassment of wildlife, we have plenty of laws in place as it is. We don't need one more regulatory item to come forward. I've listened to this for a long time. Biggest situation is that people say, well, we're not able to catch them, we're not able to this. We can do it. If the department wants it, they can catch the real problem children out there that are having this over. You have a process already in place. You have harassment laws already in place. That should be more than sufficient. I would hope you'd strike down this whole entire law. Thank you.
Thank you, Rex. Other public comment in Reno? Seeing none, public comment in Las Vegas?
No comment, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Public comment in Elko?
No comment, Chairman.
I'll bring it back to the board. Again, this is a workshop. So I'm looking for specific recommendations if we're going to move it out of workshop, or if there's an appetite not to move it forward, we can not move it forward. Commissioner Lane.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I'm a little concerned because I'm looking at the Lincoln Cab action report, and my understanding was this is the cab that originally brought this issue to the attention of the commission, and yet they're indicating that they don't support this is currently, so I'm a little concerned by that issue. If they're, this is the group that said, hey, we have a problem, and yet they don't feel like they've actually made some other recommendations that I think that we should at least take a look at. I mean, but I am concerned by that fact, so.
Yeah, and I understand. I think everyone's got the Lincoln report. They weren't able to be here today or have a representative, but they did send their recommendations, and I think if we're going to incorporate their recommendations, they're probably a little too much to incorporate today, so we'd probably have to look at a different avenue if we're going to go that route. Just my thoughts at this point, but I understand your concern. Other comments?
I guess I hate to put Director Wasley on the spot here, but
you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, but be ready. At a previous meeting, you had stated that when you talked about going to the last WAFLA meeting, and that some of the major topics was shed antlers across the west and seasons. Could you just kind of do a brief little update on what that was, and if it was that kind of concern or not?
Yeah, there's a couple issues. So for those that don't know, there are regional associations for fish and wildlife agencies. Nevada belongs to the Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, 17 member states west of the Mississippi. Have two meetings annually, a midwinter meeting in January and a summer meeting in July. The summer meeting is attended by about 300 wildlife professionals representing the different divisions within their state agencies. One of the meetings held last July in San Antonio was the Wildlife Chiefs meeting. And I believe our game chief, our new game chief, Brian Wakeling, was there in attendance representing Arizona at the time, I believe. But there were several issues that were brought forward as areas of concern, some of which included the use of drones, And shed antler collecting was discussed not only as an issue, some states are dealing with it, there are regulations in states. And there's a desire to have some communication across state boundaries so that one state doesn't create a burden for another state, which is exactly what Lincoln and White Pine counties would assert is happening right now due to regulations in Utah. They're placing a burden in some of our areas. I know it's going to be brought up again, it'll be discussed further in January in Las Vegas, and it'll be discussed more, and the association doesn't have any regulatory authority. The desire is to have communication so that, as I indicated, one state doesn't place an unnecessary burden on another state. So that we'll continue discussing what works best for everybody, but it's going to be, certainly subject to this process. We heard some public comment referencing that, an antler falls off an animal, it's no longer wildlife, and we have wildlife harassment laws already on the books. I think it's more than just the wildlife harassment laws. There's also some significant habitat destruction occurring. There's spreading of invasive species, and there are significant challenges in making a wildlife harassment case that will withstand scrutiny in a courtroom. So I realize the perception of this issue as you move around the state varies relative to its significance and the impact on the wildlife and the habitat. But it is being viewed as a West-wide issue with significant ramifications, not only to animal condition, but habitat condition that warrants further discussion. So there's nothing more specific that I can say right now, but different states are sharing their concerns, they're sharing their strategies, they're sharing their thoughts with the desire to have some consensus in dealing with it, and again, to not place an unnecessary burden on one state as a result of actions in an adjacent state.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none.
I do have a comment, and that is, I understand and hear the public comments saying, well, if it's a harassment issue, then why would you exempt private land from this regulation? And that came back from the Legislative Commission. The regulation that was initially adopted by the commission, I believe there was discussion about exempting private land from it. That did not occur. Once it went to the Legislative Commission, it came back to this commission with the direction, I guess, to create an exemption for private land. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Gable or Attorney Saber, Chairman Drew.
That's correct. I think this board discussed private land versus public land when it was initially being heard, and chose to not address that issue. And then when it came back, or when it went to the Legislative Commission, that was their recommendation, specifically to add in that private land exemption. And if I can clarify on a couple points, like Director Wasley said, some of the issue is season dates in other states causing antler hunters to come to Nevada while their home state is closed. Obviously, there's the legal issue that we're discussing as to when an antler falls off the animal, do we still have the authority to regulate that activity? Is it still considered wildlife? And talking to Deputy Attorney General Ward, neither one of us are aware of any case law that spells that out. All we could look at right now is the fact that other states are regulating shed antler hunting. Don't know if that's been challenged yet or not, but other states are doing it. Therefore, it could be assumed that we probably have similar authority. Another clarification on the wildlife harassment laws, we do have that in place, but it's for motorized vehicles. A lot of people, maybe most people, would say that this is specifically a motorized vehicle issue, that maybe a person on foot or horseback doesn't cause as much movement to animals and that sort of stuff as an ATV does, gritting out a whole alluvial fan or bench. So that's a thought to consider, but our law that talks about harassing wildlife, it says molest, harass, rally, stir up, etc. But all that's from a motorized vehicle. It does nothing to address someone on foot or horseback. Just motorized vehicles. A couple other points to further muddy the waters.
So I guess just to clarify, and Director Wasley, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the discussion at the Legislative Commission was, they asked how this would be enforced on private lands, and I think the reply was that we had discussed that, and the intent of this commission was that it not necessarily be applied to public lands, and their specific direction was, we want to see it in writing, more or less. Did I capture that correctly? I wasn't at the meeting, so.
Yeah, the discussions that occurred amongst the department and the commission, I think that the question was asked in Fallon, perhaps by Commissioner Moore, what happens if I pick up a shed antler on my property? And then Chief Game Warden Bonamici said there's specific language in this regulation that says to collect or hunt shed antlers. If you're picking one up on your property, we don't feel that would meet the definition of collecting or hunting shed antlers. And so it wasn't, I guess based on the representation by the department, it wasn't viewed necessary to have specific exemptions for private property based on that explanation. The Legislative Commission felt differently and wanted to see some assurance in writing as part of the regulation that private landowners would not be cited for picking up a shed on their own property.
So is the discussion pretty specific to someone picking up a horn on their own property, or was it
an exemption? It was an exemption for private property, not exclusive to public lands. It was an exemption for landowners to pick up sheds on their property without concern for violating a regulation.
So with that discussion, I'm looking for some direction, some discussion on whether we want to carry this forward as presented by the department, or if there's some changes that we want to make in this workshop and bring forward. Commissioners Johnston and Bliss, I know you had a couple thoughts early.
If we're gonna move forward with this and bring it out of the workshop, take it back to the public to hear again, I would have the language as it was initially adopted, and then just add the sentence, shed antlers may be collected on private property at any time during the year if permitted or authorized by the landowner.
Okay. Chief Turnham, Director Wasley, is that clear? Do you believe that meets the intent of the Legislative Commission for the discussions that you had?
I believe so.
Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess the question that's rolling around in my mind is using the terms collect versus pick up. A private landowner having the right to pick one of these, pick a shed antler up just so that they can take it home. It's not necessarily the same intent as the collection of them. So in my mind, we should, if the legislature is looking for some kind of clarification, we shouldn't be using the terminology collect as part of that clarification, and maybe there needs to be definitions for what collect means versus what pickup means, and then allow a private property owner to pick up a shed antler versus collect them. If that's really what the intent is to allow them to do it. What I was hearing is that the legislature wasn't asking for exception allowing private property owner to collect them like a shed antler collector would for purposes of selling them, whatever the case might be. Am I missing that, or?
Yeah, I don't know that that would be a safe assumption. There was concerns over any regulation of activity on private property, and there was a desire to have language that clearly stated that they had an exemption, collect, hunt, gather, whatever they wanted to do with sheds on their private property.
So if we go down that path, I sit on the fence because for years and years and years, one of the biggest challenges is to develop, maintain a level of tolerance by the property owner so that these activities can occur in those areas. Sportsmen can, so there's access. Let's just get down to it. And so I can see the value in maintaining that relationship. And providing an exception in that sense. On the other hand, the property owner would also have control over who comes and goes off of their property, and if they want to hoard anything that's on their property until they can keep up from April to December, I'm not sure how difficult that would be. We're talking a 3-month period here that they wouldn't be able to outside of the year, and that's what's rolling around in my head. Is we're making an exception for 3 months really, and how significant is that 3-month period to achieve the goal? So that's what's rolling around in my head.
Commissioner Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the original question that I had asked would when Commissioner McNinch refers to the 3-month periods, there are times when the sheds could possibly be in the way of the landowner. And the example that I used was if they're in your hay corral, you have to move them, otherwise you're going to get flats. I kind of like the language that Commissioner Johnston came up with. This thing came back to us specifically stating what we needed to add to it. And my intent when we passed it the first time was to try to keep this as simple as possible. And we saw, I think it was from the Lincoln Cab, different scenarios of licensing and kind of a complicated deal that I'm not sure that I would be comfortable in going with. So that's why I think where I stand on it is that if we keep it as simple as possible, put the private property in sync with the language that Commissioner Johnston came up with, I'm kind of agreeable to that.
Other thoughts or comments at this point? Okay, so my inclination is to move this forward out of workshop to the next meeting, and I realize that it could very well take a vote that results in this not being passed, but for sake of moving forward, what I'm hearing is that we would move this out of workshop with the blue language as presented by the department to strike basically the red language and to add Commissioner Johnston's suggestion as a second sentence. And Commissioner Johnston, if you would, just reread that for us so everyone's clear on what's moving out of workshop.
Sure, the language I proposed was shed antlers may be collected on private property at any time during the year if permitted or authorized by the landowner.
Okay. Is that clear to everyone? Department, Suzanne, you got that? So what we'll do is move forward out of workshop with the new language in. Again, cabs in public, this will come back before you for a second reading and more discussion before it's adopted, so there will be another bite at the apple. Unless there's any other questions or comments at this point, we'll go ahead and close the workshop on 9B. And for sake of maybe getting this done while everyone's hungry in an expeditious manner, I'll open the workshop on 9C, Commission General Regulation 454, temporary LCD file, firearm carried during archery hunt. Chief Game Warden Tyler Turnipseed, informational workshop. Public comment will be allowed. The Commission will hear a regulation relating to the carry of a firearm in the field while hunting under archery regulations. The regulation will change NAC 503.144 to allow the carry of a personal protection handgun while archery hunting. This will be a temporary regulation that will require legislative commission approval to become permanent after the 2015 session of the Nevada legislature. The regulation is in response to a proposed bill draft request from Nevada Assemblyman John Ellison and input from sportsmen to allow the carry of firearms while bow hunting for protection from potential criminal activity and wildlife attacks. Chief Game Warden Turnipseed, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chairman Drew. Again, Chief Game Warden Tyler Turnipseed. What I'll do is I'll read the applicable section in NAC, and then I can explain and give you a little bit of background on where this came from and why we chose to go with the wording that we did. So previously, Section 4A of NAC 503.144 simply stated it is unlawful for any person to carry any firearm in the field while hunting under archery regulations. The proposed new regulation would read, it is unlawful for any person to carry any rifle or musket in the field while hunting under archery regulations. B, carry any handgun in the field. That would be a legal firearm for hunting big game animals pursuant to NAC 503-142 while hunting under archery regulations. So some background, specifically what Chairman Drew said. I recall the Humboldt County Game Board approached me about this issue 6 or 8 months ago and said, hey, we'd like to address the issue of not being able to carry a personal protection handgun during an archery hunt. They were specifically concerned about some of the marijuana grow issues, you know, running some of the, not so much the wildlife attack issues, but the other humans that you might run into in some riparian area on the side of a mountain somewhere. I certainly understood that concern, so my recommendation to the Humboldt board was that, yeah, you know, here would be some recommendations on how I think you could word it, and you could use your county game board process to bring that to the commission. They hadn't taken any action on it yet. Then just here in the last month or two, Assemblyman Ellison from Elko had a couple of sportsmen come to him concerned about mountain lion type attacks, you know, wildlife attacks. Asked that he bring a bill to the legislature to authorize it. We felt that we could probably easily handle that at this level without bogging down the legislative process with it. So said, okay, well, obviously we don't want somebody walking up the hill carrying their Weatherby 30-06 during archery season. So the intent being for personal protection, not hunting guns. Where do we draw that line in the sand? What's a hunting gun? What's a personal protection gun? To my knowledge, there's not a clear definition of what a handgun is. So we looked at NAC 503-142, which essentially already draws that line in the sand of what's a hunting weapon versus what's not. Specifically for handguns, look at in your support material there, subsection 5 of NAC 503-142 specifies what would make a legal handgun for big game hunting. And it's a little bit weird. It says a person may hunt big game mammals with a handgun if the handgun uses a centerfire cartridge, has a barrel length of 4 inches or more, and uses a cartridge of caliber 22 or larger, an overall load length of 2 inches or more, or uses a cartridge of caliber 24, the case length no less than the length of the case of cartridge for a 44 Magnum. I realize that's a little wordy and cumbersome. I've measured some cases. You can look online and look at minimum and maximum case lengths. Essentially what that says is that some of your larger revolver rounds are legal to hunt big game with, i.e. 357, 41 mag, and 44 mag. Those are the 3 most common. And then of course any of your guns that are built off of a rifle cartridge platform, like your contenders, that sort of stuff that might shoot a 22 250 round or a 243 round, that sort of stuff. So my intent with using that wording for the archery regulation is basically because 503-142 already draws that line of what's a hunting gun and what's not a hunting gun. If we borrow that language, essentially what it does is it allows your standard, most of your semi-auto rounds, 9mm, 40, 45, most anything that's going to be a personal protection semi-automatic type handgun. It would not allow the 44 mag with the 8-inch barrel that you could shoot deer at 200 yards with. That was sort of my concern of using this language to where we're not authorizing a hunting type handgun. We are authorizing personal protection type handguns.
So in that vein, the way I read this, because one of the questions came up at a CAB meeting I attended about a pistol with a barrel longer than 4 inches. It would actually be exempt, potentially, depending on the caliber, under A or B. Am I reading that right? So just because you had a handgun with a 5-inch barrel doesn't necessarily mean it's out, so long as the cartridge matches the description of A or B?
Correct. If you're looking at a specific handgun and it meets the requirements as a legal handgun to hunt big game with, then you could not carry it during the archery hunt. If it does not meet these requirements, in other words, barrel length less than 4 inches, and or caliber smaller than those calibers, then it would not be a legal handgun to hunt big game with, which means you could hunt, or you could carry it during the archery hunt. Did that answer your question?
So like a 9mm with a 5-inch barrel.
You could carry it during archery hunt.
That was the question.
Because it doesn't meet that minimum caliber requirement in 142.
Questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Lane.
I just have some issues on many levels, but, so my understanding, the purpose of this is from archery hunters who are concerned about meeting marijuana growers, and they're going to protect themselves from those marijuana growers. Is that correct? So we're going to have a nice little firefight out. And I mean, you know, I can't really picture this whole issue. I'm sorry, but I just have concerns about what's being proposed here. That's my, you know, if they think that they're marijuana growers and they come upon them, I just see this firefight ensuing. Is this what we're saying that we want to do? I mean, is this what we're proposing to do?
Sure. Karen, I know we don't always agree, but you know, we've worked together for many years in the police department. I can tell you it is a fact. In the Spring Mountains, the DEA and Metro are constantly fighting these cartel guys out there. These Mexican cartels are growing weed all over there, and they do have guns. And I could probably easily today pull up several articles from some police magazines and stuff about firefights that are occurring out there in the hills between hunters around the country and the marijuana growers. They're armed, they have elaborate irrigation systems, they live out there in seclusion, and a tremendous amount of weed is grown out there in the Spring Mountains.
Mr. Chair, then my suggestion is, so if that's the case, and we know that for a fact, then you don't allow archery hunters in those areas.
No, that's not the point. It's regular hunting ground, but why shouldn't somebody be able to protect themselves? What's the point? What's the problem?
Well, I guess
if they're archery hunting, they're not going to kill the animal with a small handgun, but if they encounter one of these bad guys, I'd sure in the hell want one in my hand.
And I guess my question, you know, my only response to that is, how do you know that they're not going to use that handgun to kill an animal? I mean, you're making the assumption, I mean, we're making the assumption, right, that this is for self-protection. But what's to say that that person wouldn't come, you know, because we're talking about archery here, and we know that there's a good, you know, you may not bring down that animal, per se. So what's to say that they're not going to say, well, you know, that animal threatened me and I'm going to shoot the animal with my handgun? I mean, somehow when we talk about sportsmen, I just have a hard time with fitting this into that, and I just think there may be other ways of dealing with the situation. If it's that bad a situation out there, you know, in some of these areas, and they're known, then, you know, maybe we need to look at what we're allowing in those areas. That's my concern.
Yeah, I guess there's probably just a difference of opinion here, but as someone who has archery hunted in the past and not necessarily handled a pistol nearly as much as a bow, I can tell you I am much more lethal with an archery tackle than I would ever be with a handgun. So I think it's a little bit apples and oranges. I hate to always write regulations to the lowest common denominator. I was able to talk to a gentleman who did come across a marijuana grow during a hunt, and if you want to talk about a shaken up individual, that was this guy. So I completely understand the intent here. You know, I'm not here to make a witch hunt out of things or talk about people's moral character. Let's stick to the regulation. Commissioner Bliss.
Yeah, Tyler, I got a quick question. If a person has a concealed weapons permit and is authorized to pack a pistol, a revolver, or a semi-automatic of any size, which law overrides the one that we have saying that you can't pack one during archery season, or the one that you are authorized to have through a CCW, having a CCW?
The CCW issue doesn't totally apply, I guess, other than there are some other states that use that as their deciding factor, that if you have a CCW, you can carry during archery hunt. As far as the legalities of one superseding the other, it's not necessarily how it would be looked at. It's a matter of, regardless of whether you carry concealed or open, obviously the Second Amendment guarantees you the right to keep and bear arms. But the courts have decided through case law over the years that if you elect to archery hunt, you're choosing to participate in a highly regulated activity, and therefore we could regulate, carry of a handgun or any firearm during that activity, because it's an activity that you're choosing to participate in. As far as concealed carry versus open carry, doesn't really differentiate. Does that answer your question, or did I miss the intent of it?
No, it answers it, but I just see a person that you're licensed to pack a pistol with you totally into the store, but you can't pack it when you're in the mountains hunting. So that's where
Like I said, there are some neighboring states that use that as their cutoff point to say, yes, if you've gone through the process to get your CCW, you can carry during the archery hunt.
With no limitations to caliber size.
Correct. Yep. And maybe if I can further chime in on Commissioner Young and Commissioner Lane's discussion, that Commissioner Young is correct. There are marijuana grows that are found throughout the state every year, probably as many as 10 or 12 every year. There's no way of knowing where those are going to pop up. I know in Humboldt County, I know of 5 or 6 over the last 3 or 4 years. Those are usually discovered by some hiker or archery hunter. The timing of the year is unfortunate, because when our archery seasons are going in August, that's right when those crops are reaching maturity and getting ready to harvest. So they have all their cartel personnel are there on the mountains during August or September. And so, yeah, there was an instance in Humboldt County about 4 or 5 years ago of 3 BLM employees that were out checking a riparian exclosure and got confronted at gunpoint, held for quite some time, held hostage with long guns, threatened to be killed, all that sort of stuff. They convinced them that they were not law enforcement and that they had families at home, and these cartel guys essentially let them go. Sheriff's office the next day swooped in and destroyed that grove, but the personnel were already gone. They didn't catch anybody on it. But so anyway, my point is that these growers pick little out-of-the-way places out in the middle of nowhere in Nevada to grow. Any place there's going to be water and some tree cover, and that's remote where they don't think they're going to be discovered. By the way things work, that's where our archery hunters go when they're archery hunting.
Jack Roberts, Department of Wildlife, for the record. I was hoping Chairman Drew was going to take lunch before we got to this agenda item, so I could speak with Tyler before we got going here. But 10:20 today, I got a call from Mr. Ellison concerning this matter, and I was assured on that phone call that if there's a caliber restriction, that his BDR is going forward. He has it. He's ready to go with it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That was very clear in my conversation with him. So just be aware of that. If we don't do something here, or do it in a manner that is of satisfaction to Mr. Ellison, there is a BDR that is going forward without a doubt.
Commissioner Lane.
I think Mr. Ellison is going to be the chair of the Natural Resources Committee. And so I guess my concern on something like this is, here we've got this person saying, you will, or this is what's going to happen. And I guess, so we have to decide as a commission if we want to address this issue or if we want the legislature to address this issue. And I don't think this is going to be the last of the proposals that this commission is going to be faced with. I mean, I think that, I think we can be assured that there are going to be other issues associated with some of these things that are going to come before us, before or during the legislative session. And I think we as a commission need to decide, what we're going to do. But it does concern me to know when to see something like this happening, and I just want to express that concern on my part.
I guess my only comment would be, I think this body needs to conduct its business independent of what the legislature may or may not do. This is, I know the way it was listed on the agenda cites Assemblyman Ellison, and he has the authority to do whatever he feels appropriate as a legislator, but I don't think it should dictate how we do our business. This is something that other individuals and other county advisory boards felt strongly about as well. So that's how I'm approaching this. I think we need to approach it as a commission, and whatever happens on the legislature, let those chips fall where they may. Just because it gets introduced doesn't necessarily mean anything one way or the other. So that's my thoughts. Commissioner Johnston.
This kind of dovetails into what I was already going to say. When I read this proposed regulation, I own a couple handguns, some that have been handed down to me from my father when he was in law enforcement, others that I've purchased. I read this, and then I read the definition in NAC 503.142, and I am by no means a firearms expert at all. I read it, I said, I don't even know what I could or could not take on an archery hunt. And I like to keep things, I think, simpler. And my view is, before even hearing the comments about what any legislator may do, is if you're going to allow people to take a handgun into the field during the archery season, it should be the handgun that they have or that they want to take. I have the utmost confidence that the people that put in for an archery hunt to draw an archery tag are doing it for a reason. They're archery hunters. They want to use a bow and the challenge of that, and if they have a pistol with them, and they take it into the field, they're not doing it to try to skirt the issue or get away from the concept of an archery hunt. So my view would be, and I'm supportive of giving an archery hunter the ability to take a sidearm into the field, but I would like to just see permit any handgun could be taken in by an archery hunter. I just don't believe that the archery hunters are going to abuse that ability. Maybe there might be a couple, but I don't want to deny the vast majority of the right to carry a firearm because of what a couple people might do.
I agree with Commissioner Johnston 100%, with the exception of the 8-inch barrel 44 and any or scoped handguns. And I think that he's right on with the rest of his comments. Archery hunters have high degree of ethics. They work harder than I'm willing to do. And why bother to even put in for archery if you're going to kill the thing with a firearm? So I agree with you.
Other comments by the commission or questions? Okay, I'm going to take this out to county advisory boards in Reno. Mr. Dixon, any other county advisory boards, please come on out to the podium and we'll kind of line you up so we can.
Jeremy's getting hungry.
Maybe get a break. I'm getting a lot of hungry looks. Cast in my direction.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark. Couple of things that we said, and we kind of talked about the caliber thing that Commissioner Johnson brought up, and I think the twist that I'll add onto that for the caliber thing is and I'd look back to Chief Game Warden Turnipseed, back on site here, is if you're in the field and you see a handgun on somebody who's standing there with a bow, to go up and have him show you that handgun and do all of that has the potential to escalate an issue in the field versus if you say you're allowed to carry a handgun and it can be whatever caliber, and if you're not seen doing something illegal with the handgun, just move on. There's a potential for an escalation of events in the field if you're having to do this, look to see what it is and all that kind of stuff, rather than just say he's got a handgun and it's legal to carry in the field. And I would agree with, although we didn't discuss it at our CAB, I personally would agree with what Commissioner Young said, is that having a 9-inch barrel or scope gun is not really something you're carrying in general in the field for personal protection. I mean, a 44 mag with a 9-inch barrel, I have a Super Red Hawk. That gun is not personal protection. First off, you carry it in a chest holder and you can't do much out with it. Kind of look like Dirty Harry. It's a big, big gun. So that was the big thing when we had our discussion, and then we had a dissenting set of votes in Clark County that just felt kind of where Commissioner Lane is that it's an archery hunt. Keep it pure. Don't put the temptation of somebody doing something stupid with a firearm during an archery hunt. Just don't allow any guns, period, in archery hunt. And it's a risk you take going out, and as Commissioner Drew said, he's pretty lethal with his bow, at least at 25 yards. Thanks.
Quick down of Washoe County, our board was against having the firearm in the field. First probably would be the use. The purist is not going to take a handgun anyway, and the amateur might be an easier way. And the personal protection part, unfortunately, I don't think Washoe County has enough water to grow marijuana, so we're talking cougars maybe.
All right, other county advisory boards in Reno. Public comment in Reno. Come on up. Go ahead and line it up so we can keep you moving.
For the record, my name is Corey Dalton, and I'm here on two aspects of the handgun for archery. First is I'm fully in support of the handgun for protection within archery for both weirdness out there. I don't care if it's a marijuana grower or some homeless vagrant or an animal. Once you fire that first arrow, good luck shooting your second one if something happens. But I also wanted to bring this up. I left a message because I only saw this 2 days ago, but I tried to leave a message with Mr. Turnipseed that I'm a falconer, and it's even worse with us. We got nothing when we go out. And as an example, I've encountered rattlesnakes, badgers, and one mountain lion that were all a little close for my taste. The rattlesnake, I would love to have done nothing more than killed that thing because my bird actually started to come at it just thinking it was a gopher snake. They don't know the difference. Last Sunday, out in Antelope Valley, my friend Brian had to actually run screaming, waving his arms because his bird killed a pigeon out in the middle of that valley, and a coyote began running in on it. And they will run in and grab whatever's there and run away with it. And some of these birds that we used to hunt are very expensive. And if he would have been allowed to, that coyote got within 15 feet of that bird before he got there. He would have been out about $2,000 for that bird and months and months and months of training it, just because he's not allowed to carry a handgun to protect his property or himself from the aspects that are out in the wild. I'll tell you, there's nothing more unnerving than being out in that wild and doing the sport that we do that's not archery, and encountering an animal that it's too close to try and figure out what that animal's intentions are, whether it's badger, coyote, mountain lion, whatever it is. We have nothing when we're out there, and that's even more unnerving than archery. I am an archery hunter, I'm a falconer, and I'm a muzzleloader. And I totally agree with Commissioner Johnson's comment here that, keep it pure, but just for a safety standpoint, I would rather have my gun and not need it than have it and need it, honestly. Even if my gun just had rattlesnake rounds in it to, protect myself from some small perimeter thing. But I'm fully in favor of allowing handguns in your possession while you're practicing archery, and I would really like to have that amended to also include falconry. That's all I have to say. Anybody have any questions for me?
Okay, thank you. Next public comment.
My name is Lister Pitts. I'm with the Nevada Bowhunters Association. I'm a board member. We have 200 members, and I'm here to say that the Nevada Bowhunters Association supports allowing handguns during the archery hunt. It's our opinion that having the ability to break the law isn't the same thing as breaking the law. So if you have the ability to shoot something with a handgun, it doesn't mean that you're going to shoot something with a handgun. We feel that arrow wounds do not look like handgun wounds. So if an animal was taken with a handgun, it's going to look different. The meat's going to have hydrostatic shock. It's going to be easily identifiable as a poached animal. We believe that modern archery equipment is more accurate than handguns, which I was really happy to see Chairman Drew state that. I would take a bow at 40 yards over any pistol in the world. Anybody with a basic ability with a bow should be able to group better than with a pistol. Chances for animal attacks are very slim, but not unheard of. There's been 3 lion kills in the western states since 2000. Also, one of our things is we had a female member who had encountered some rough gentlemen during her archery hunt. One of the things you guys have to remember, archery hunters, we're usually solitary. We're not out there in a group. were all by ourselves, and she had a very, very tense moment with some guys that found her all by herself. If she had the ability to defend herself, maybe they wouldn't have given her such a hard time. We believe that the caliber language is a little confusing. We think that we would like to see it just be a barrel restriction and no scopes. We agree there's no reason to have a scope restriction. We think that the caliber language is, if you're going to poach a deer, why do you care, or an animal, why do you care what caliber you're shooting it with? You're already poaching, you're already breaking the law. Why do you need to shoot it with a legal round? Our surrounding states, Idaho allows archers to carry weapons. Utah allows archers to carry weapons with the CCW. Arizona allows archers to carry weapons. Oregon allows archers to carry weapons, and in 2003, their Attorney General ruled that the state didn't have the ability to tell archers they couldn't carry weapons. So it has been some legislation on this and some legal action. So that's all I have to say about that. We do also support 17A that's coming up tomorrow, and I'm not going to be here tomorrow. I just wanted to come out and say that we support those regulation changes.
You can address that more in public comment at the end of the meeting too, if you like.
Thank you.
For now, let's stick on this. Thank you. Are there other public comment, Reno? Seeing none, public comment in Las Vegas.
No comment in Las Vegas, Chairman.
Thank you. Public comment in Elko.
No comment in Elko.
Bring it back to the board. Again, we're in a workshop. If we're going to make some changes to the language, I'd like to be specific with it or provide staff some direction to work up some language that we can come back for, I guess, a first reading. But that's where we kind of sit at this point, looking for direction on how we want to move this forward from workshop. Commissioner Johnson.
Hearing the public comment and comments from Commissioner Young, what I would propose is that the proposed language in subparagraph 4B read, and I'll start with it is unlawful for any person to, and then we drop down to subparagraph B, have that changed to read, carry in the field any scoped handgun or a handgun with a barrel length over 6 inches. 8. I'll change that to 8. As I said, I'm not an expert in handguns.
Semi-expert. We covered 8 would be more accurate as far as being able to get out there. If it's 6 inches.
I'm not a handgun hunter, so I'm not sure if
My
guys.
experiences are more of the handgun hunters, more like what Paul's talking about.
Yeah, the 8 inch.
Everything I see is 8 or 9 that I've seen people hunt.
Me too.
Whatever's your preference.
Okay, so.
Like me to restate that?
Yeah, so we're talking number 4B, sub B.
So 4B would read, starting at 4, it is unlawful for any person to B, carry any scoped let me back up. B, carry in the field any scoped handgun or a handgun with a barrel length over 8 inches.
Would you want to say, so would you want an 8-inch barrel to be acceptable or exclusive?
The barrel length of 8 inches or more. There you go. Would you like me to read that again?
Yeah, let's make sure we can get it in our minutes and in our support material for the next meeting.
Sure, then subsection B would read, carry in the field any scoped handgun or a handgun with a barrel length of 8 inches or more.
Everyone clear on that? Questions or comments? Suzanne, do you got that clearly? Okay, so it'd be in our support material.
Chairman Drew, would it be an oversimplification just to allow archery hunters to use handguns with the CCW permit, period? I mean, if a person actually really wants to carry a handgun, it's not that difficult to get a CCW permit. Allow us to carry whatever weapon you buy.
I think it's probably definitely an option. I know other states have done it. Given where we're at, I think the comfort level with our members in terms of where we're at, I'm comfortable moving it out of workshop as is, unless there's other folks who think that's a cleaner way to go moving forward.
I don't personally. I think this is an open carry state. There are people who don't have CCWs, and I don't. But there is times when I may be out in wherever I may be in rural Nevada, and I put one on my belt when I'm with my family, and for a variety of reasons, things may pop up. You hope they never do, but it's a big rural state, and you never know what you might run into. So.
Any other comments or questions? All right, so what I'll do is I'll close the workshop on temporary LCB file, Commission General Regulation 454, and we'll carry this forward to next meeting with the wording suggested by Commissioners Johnston and Young.
Lowering falconry then?
I'll address that with you offline. Okay. So we'll go ahead and close agenda item 9C. We can do one of two things. We've got 3 agenda items before us. We can take a 10-minute break and push through and be done early, or we can take an hour lunch and come back and pick up those 3 items. Do I have druthers one way or the other?
10-minute break's mine.
Everyone okay with 10-minute break? Okay.
No, Brad needs
15. Okay, we'll take a 15-minute break. We'll skip lunch today and wrap up early, so we're at 12:50. We'll come back at 1:05.